Every map shows Antarctica as white, solid ice, a frozen wasteland at the bottom of the world. The fifth largest continent, they say in textbooks. 14 million square kilometers of nothing but snow, wind, and research stations where scientists measure temperatures and study penguins. Dead, sterile, empty for millions of years. That's the version taught in schools. That's the version on every atlas, every globe, every digital map. White emptiness. But beneath that ice, beneath an average of 1.9 kilometers of frozen water, in some places nearly 5 kilometers deep, lies a landscape. Not flat, not smooth. Mountains taller than the Rockies. Valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon. River systems that once flowed for thousands of kilometers. And lakes, liquid lakes, nearly 400 of them, some the size of small countries, sitting in absolute darkness beneath the weight of ice that's been there for 34 million years. Or has it? Antarctica isn't what maps show. It's the lid on something. And in November 2023, a team using ground-penetrating ice radar published data that shouldn't exist. Not according to geology. Not according to the accepted timeline. Structures. Geometric. Buried under 2.3 kilometers of ice in Queen Maud Land. Structures that, if they're what the data suggests, mean someone was there when Antarctica was green. And that's when the questions stop being about ice and start being about why. For 65 years, the Antarctic Treaty has made it illegal for anyone except approved scientific missions to go there. Why satellite images of certain regions are blurred or restricted. Why exploration teams that stray into prohibited zones are escorted out by military aircraft. And why a map drawn in 1513, 256 years before Antarctica was officially discovered, shows its coastline in perfect detail without ice. Picture this, December 9th, 1946. Admiral Richard Byrd, one of America's most decorated explorers, leads Operation High Jump. The official mission: establish research bases, test equipment in extreme cold, train personnel. The deployment: for 1,700 men, 13 ships, 33 aircraft, including seaplanes, helicopters, and flying boats. The largest expedition Antarctica had ever seen. Planned for 8 months. It ended in 8 weeks. Byrd's team came back early. Equipment losses officially blamed on weather. Several aircraft down. Casualties. The mission report classified. Byrd himself, in an interview with Chilean press on March 5, 1947, said something strange. He warned of the necessity to prepare defenses against enemy fighters that can fly from pole to pole at incredible speed. The U.S. military dismissed it. Exhaustion, they said. Stress from the cold. Byrd never spoke publicly about Antarctica again in detail. 10 years later, 1959, 12 nations signed the Antarctic Treaty. Article 1. Antarctica shall be used for peaceful purposes only. Article 4. No territorial claims. Article 7. All areas open to inspection by any signatory nation. Sounds transparent. Except Article 9 gives a council the power to designate areas of special protection. Zones where even treaty members need special permission to enter. As of 2024, there are over 70 such zones. Their coordinates, mostly public. Their contents, mostly classified. The reason for protection, officially ecological preservation. The enforcement, military. Now, go back further. 1513, Istanbul. A Turkish admiral named Piri Reis completes a map. He's a cartographer, a scholar, and he's working from source maps. Older maps, some from the Library of Alexandria, some from explorers whose names have been lost. The Piri Reis map shows the Atlantic Ocean, the coast of South America, and something else. The northern coast of Antarctica. In detail. Bays, inlets, mountain ranges. No ice. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820 by Russian explorer Fabian von Bellingshausen. That's 307 years after Piri Reis drew it. And when modern researchers compared the Piri Reis map to seismic surveys of the bedrock beneath Antarctica's ice, the match was nearly exact. River deltas, coastal topography, elevations. As if the map was drawn when the continent was ice-free. The problem? According to geology, Antarctica has been frozen for 34 million years. The ice cores drilled at Vostok Station go back 800,000 years. Solid ice. Continuous glaciation. No breaks. No thaw. So how did a 1513 map show coastline that's been under ice since before humans existed? Mainstream historians say Pyrie Reis made it up or copied errors from earlier fictional maps. Cartographic speculation. Except the map isn't speculative. It's accurate, down to longitudinal precision that shouldn't have been possible without chronometers, which weren't invented until 1761. Pyrie Reis himself wrote on the map that he used about 20 source maps, some dating from the time of Alexander the Great. Maps from a time when officially Antarctica was unknown and frozen. But here's the detail science journals avoid. Ice doesn't form uniformly. It advances and retreats with climate shifts. The last ice-free period in the Arctic was 10,000 years ago. Geology confirms this. Evidence of forests, grasslands, animals. Then ice. But Antarctica? Officially, no ice-free period for 34 million years. Yet pollen samples taken from sediment cores in the Ross Ice Shelf in 2009 showed traces of Nothofagus, southern beech trees. Age: approximately 15,000 years. Trees don't grow under ice. They grow in temperate climates, with rain, soil, sunlight, which means 15,000 years ago, parts of Antarctica were not frozen. They were forested. Now forward to 2001. A team from Ohio State University uses ice-penetrating radar to map the Gambert-Sev mountain range, buried under 4 kilometers of ice in East Antarctica. What they find: mountains as tall as the Alps, with river valleys carved by water erosion. Not glacial erosion, water erosion. Flowing rivers, which require temperatures above freezing. The models say these rivers stopped flowing 34 million years ago. But the erosion patterns are sharp, not weathered. Geologically young. Tens of thousands of years, not millions. And then there are the lakes. Lake Vostok, discovered beneath Russia's Vostok Station, is the largest subglacial lake on Earth. 250 kilometers long, 50 kilometers wide, up to 900 meters deep. Liquid water, at a depth of 4 kilometers beneath ice. Temperature, -3 degrees Celsius, kept liquid by geothermal heat and pressure. Life was found in samples extracted in 2013. Microbial life, extremophiles, bacteria that have been isolated from the surface for potentially millions of years, evolving in total darkness. If life exists there, what else exists? In 2018, satellite thermal imaging detected a geothermal anomaly in West Antarctica. Heat signature consistent with volcanic activity, except there are no active volcanoes mapped in that region. The source: underground. A caldera, possibly, or a heat vent, large enough to melt ice in a radius of several kilometers, creating potentially a hidden cavity, a space, warm, liquid, accessible if you know where to dig. No public expedition has gone there. The coordinates fall within a restricted zone. Now, the structures. November 2023. A research team from the European Space Agency processes synthetic aperture radar data from Queen Maud Land, a region in East Antarctica claimed by Norway. The data shows geometric patterns beneath the ice. Right angles, parallel lines, symmetry, at depths between 2 and 2.5 kilometers. The formations are approximately 1.8 kilometers across. Too large to be natural rock formations with that degree of regularity. Too geometric. The official statement from ESA: anomalous radar returns, likely due to subsurface ice density variations or mineralization. No follow-up expedition announced. No drilling. No further analysis made public. But independent researchers analyzing the same publicly available radar data confirmed it. Geometric. Repeating. Oriented on a north-south axis. One researcher, Dr. Charles Hapgood, geologist and professor, had theorized in the 1950s that Earth's crust shifts periodically, moving land masses rapidly to new latitudes. He called it crustal displacement. Mainstream geology rejected it. But Albert Einstein, in a foreword to Hapgood's book, wrote, "His idea is original, of great simplicity, and, if it continues to prove itself, of great importance to everything that is related to the history of the Earth's surface." Hapgood believed Antarctica was once positioned further north in a temperate zone and shifted to its current polar position within the last 12,000 years. Fast enough that civilization, if it existed there, would have been buried under rapidly forming ice. No time to evacuate. No time to leave records. Just extinction and ice. Far-fetched, except for one thing. Magnetic pole reversals are documented in geology. The poles flip. North becomes south. It's happened hundreds of times. The mechanism isn't fully understood, but the evidence is in volcanic rock, frozen in time with reversed magnetic orientation. If the magnetic poles can flip, why not the crust itself? Then there are the pyramids. January 2012. Image analyst Kevin Stebbing examines Google Earth satellite imagery of Queen Maud Land. He identifies structures protruding through ice. Angular, triangular, approximately 1.2 kilometers per side at the base. Steep faces, orientation aligned with cardinal directions. He publishes the coordinates. Others verify. The images are real, not glitches. Geologists say they're nunataks, mountain peaks shaped by wind erosion into pyramid-like forms. Possible, except some show too much symmetry. Faces too flat. Angles too precise. In 2016, an anonymous source claiming to be a contractor with the Antarctic Survey Program leaked photos allegedly taken during a ground expedition to one of the sites. The photos show a stone surface partially exposed. Smooth, dark, basaltic possibly, covered in a thin layer of ice. The photos were removed from the internet within 48 hours. No official acknowledgement. And then there's the German expedition. 1938 to 1939. Nazi Germany sends the Schwabenland expedition to Antarctica, specifically to the region now called New Schwabenland. New Swabia. The official mission, territorial claim. The method, aircraft dropping thousands of swastika-marked flags. The fleet, a converted aircraft carrier, supports ships and Dornier flying boats. But the expedition also brought geologists, surveyors, and photographers. They mapped vast areas of the interior using aerial reconnaissance, something no nation had done at that scale. When the expedition returned, Germany formally claimed 600,000 square kilometers of Antarctic territory. Hitler reportedly called it the New Heartland. Then the war started. The maps were classified. Some were lost. Some ended up in Soviet hands after Berlin fell. Persistent rumors, never confirmed, say the Nazis discovered ice-free areas kept warm by geothermal vents, underground caverns, habitable zones. After the war, scattered reports from U-boat crews claimed some submarines were ordered to Antarctica in the final weeks of the war. Cargo, unknown. None of those submarines were recovered. Officially, they sank. No wreckage found. Operation High Jump in 1946, 1 year after the war ended, was led by Admiral Byrd, the same man who in 1929 had been the first to fly over the South Pole. He knew Antarctica. He'd been there multiple times. Yet High Jump deployed with military force, destroyers, submarines, an aircraft carrier, for a research mission in a region where Nazi claims had been made less than a decade prior. Byrd's expedition photographed over 70% of Antarctica's coastline. Those photographs remain partially classified. The mission's abrupt end. The strange warning about pole-to-pole threats. Then silence. In 1959, the Antarctic Treaty froze all territorial claims and banned military activity. 12 nations signed. Today, 56 nations are parties to it. The treaty is the most successful international agreement in modern history. No wars, no conflicts, total cooperation, which is unusual for a barren frozen wasteland that, officially, has no resources, no strategic value, and no history. Except for the coal. In 1912, Robert Falcon Scott's expedition found coal seams in the transantarctic mountains. Coal forms from ancient forests. Trees, plants, swamps. Compressed over millions of years. The coal in Antarctica is high-grade bituminous. Age: approximately 250 million years from the Permian period, when Antarctica was part of Gondwana, a supercontinent that included South America, Africa, India, and Australia. Before the breakup, before the drift, when Antarctica was warm. But there's younger coal too. Samples from the Antarctic Peninsula dated to 50 million years ago, and fossilized wood, found in 2016 near the dry valleys, dated to 20 million years ago. Still younger, still closer to now. Trees that grew when officially ice already covered the continent. What if the ice isn't as old as the models say? What if it advanced in surges, not gradually? What if there were windows, brief periods, even just a few thousand years, when parts of Antarctica thawed? The Orontius Phineas map, drawn in 1531, shows Antarctica ice-free, with rivers and mountains labeled. The Bwatch map, 1754, shows Antarctica as two landmasses separated by water, exactly how it appears in modern seismic surveys beneath the ice. Two separate landmasses, connected by glaciers on the surface, but divided by ocean channels underneath. Bwatch had no technology to see beneath ice, yet his map is accurate. These maps are called portolan charts, navigational maps used by sailors, copied and recopied from older sources. Some researchers believe they trace back to a common, lost source, a maritime civilization with advanced cartography, predating known history. Their maps survived. They didn't. Antarctica is larger than Europe. It contains 70% of Earth's fresh water. If the ice melted, sea levels would rise 60 meters. Every coastal city would drown. That's the threat climate science focuses on. But there's another question one geology doesn't ask publicly. What's under the ice that's not rock? In 2020, a borehole drilled by the British Antarctic Survey at a depth of 900 meters found something unexpected. Sponges. Marine sponges. Alive. Attached to a rock in a lightless, freezing cavity beneath the ice shelf. They shouldn't be there. Sponges need food. Food needs a source. The source, scientists hypothesize, is a current bringing organic matter from the ocean. Except the cavity is isolated, sealed by ice. The sponges have been there, based on growth rates, for centuries. Surviving. Feeding on something. No one knows what. Then there's the sound. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones detected an ultra-low frequency sound in the South Pacific, near the Antarctic coast. They called it the bloop. Loudest underwater sound ever recorded. Frequency patterns similar to biological origin, like a whale but far, far larger. Analysis suggested the source would have to be several times bigger than a blue whale. No known animal fits. The sound was detected over 5,000 kilometers away. It happened once, never repeated. NOAA's official explanation: icequake. A massive iceberg fracturing. Possible, but the waveform didn't match other icequakes. It matched a vocalization. Something alive. Something enormous. Something in the ocean around Antarctica. Or under it. December 2021. A team drilling into the Mercer subglacial lake, 600 meters below the ice, retrieved water samples. Sterile procedure. Clean room processing. They found DNA, not microbial, multicellular, unidentified, genetic sequences that didn't match any known organism in databases. Contamination was ruled out. The DNA was there, in water that's been sealed for thousands of years. Life, isolated, evolving separately. What else is isolated down there? The seventh continent on every map. The one at the bottom. The one that's white and empty. Except it's not empty. It's covered. There are mountains no human has ever seen with their own eyes. Rivers that flowed when Antarctica was green. Forests whose fossilized wood still lies in valleys beneath kilometers of ice. And maybe, just maybe, something else. Something mapped before it froze. Something geometric beneath the ice. Something that made a dozen nations agree, in 1959, that no one gets to own it, no one gets to militarize it, and no one gets to go there without permission. The ice in Antarctica is melting. Not everywhere, not evenly, but it's melting. In 50 years, maybe less, Parts of the interior will be exposed for the first time in millennia. Coastlines will emerge. Valleys will open. And whatever is under there, whatever has been waiting in the dark, under the weight of ice, will be visible.